In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. And the most advanced. So, hello everyone. I thought of recording something today relevant to something recent that's happened to me. Okay. Today's lecture is a bit of a strange one. I normally don't talk about this. The only reason is because it's relevant to something I went through recently. And I wanted to tell the viewers that self-sabotage is real. And also, I wanted to explain how it's different from bipolarism. Now, I personally, I've seen people with bipolarism. If there was something wrong with me, it'd be self-sabotage. It wouldn't be bipolarism. But I'll explain the difference here because that's the whole point. So, you're going to be listening to me read the research component. We're going to figure out what, I'm going to read for you what's been said. And then I'm going to share with you and I'm going to connect the dots at the end, I guess. So, the most academic and clinical explanation, this is ChatGPT, like the basic one, not the membership one. So, sit back and listen to this academic and clinical explanation. First, self-sabotage. So AI says, here are two high-level explanations. The first is formal, clinical, academic. The second is the most advanced integrative view, 2025 plus, that blends neuroscience, psychology, and systems theory. Self-sabotage is classified as a maladaptive behavior and cognitive pattern, not a psychiatric disorder. It manifests when an individual... Okay, let me read the simpler version and then we'll come to this. So ChatGPT gave a simpler answer before I told it to explain it. It said, what is self-sabotage? Self-sabotage is a behavior pattern, not a medical disorder. It means you unknowingly act against your own goals, success, or well-being, even when you consciously want to succeed. I haven't been in a relationship in a while. I was getting too close to someone recently, and I don't know what happened, but whether it was divine intervention or what it was as if like a part of me, I don't know how to explain self-sabotage. It's very difficult. It's like a part of you doesn't like you, so it doesn't want to let you win. Okay, but anyways, we're going to dive into it, look at the psychology. So anybody who's dealing with self-sabotage, I can give you experiential, this is an experiential lecture about that, but bipolarism, I don't know. I've seen even, people in my family have something equivalent to bipolar disorder. Usually it requires a chemical solution. You see, that's the difference between psychology and psychiatry. A psychologist is not allowed to prescribe medicine to you, but a psychiatrist is. Why? Because the psychiatrist can identify that the problem is biological. It is not psychological. Okay, but self-sabotage is a weird psychological thing, right? And I think it happens to a certain range of people that it's based on a certain trauma. Anyways, here, so the basic explanation, it's saying, so it means you unknowingly act against your own goals, success, or well-being, even when you consciously want to succeed. Examples: procrastinating right before a life-changing opportunity, pushing away healthy relationships, quitting when things start going well, creating drama during stability, repeating the same destructive habits while knowing better. So those all, I can relate to those. Root causes: fear of success or failure. Yep. Low self-worth. Yep. Didn't need to even read that. Childhood conditioning. Yep. Trauma. Now this is where somebody, I remember I looked into why, like, some kids are just extremely shy or something, and evidently it's like when they're very young, something overwhelming happens to them that they cannot process, so they just distrust. They have a feeling of distrust, but it's not consciously recognizable because they were too young when they experienced something, right? It says childhood conditioning, trauma, comfort with chaos, unconscious identity. In quotations, it says, I'm not the person who wins. So yeah, people could be treating you in a certain way, but it all goes back to your unconscious identity. What a fascinating. I feel like I can give a lecture on this. That what is your unconscious identity? I mean, I have given a lecture of this. Why do you think I keep telling people, I wonder about your unknown self, not just your known self in a known world? So it says, anyways, I'm going to keep reading. It says key points. We're doing the research component first. Self-sabotage is psychological conditioning plus subconscious fear, and it can be changed through awareness and therapy. Now, what is bipolar disorder? Bipolar disorder is a medical mood disorder involving biological changes in the brain. It causes extreme mood shifts between 1. Mania, hypomania. Extreme energy, little sleep, racing thoughts, grand ideas, impulsivity, risky behavior. 2. Depression, deep sadness, no motivation, hopelessness, fatigue, suicidal thoughts. These mood shifts are not chosen, not learned, not identity-based. They're driven by neurological chemistry. And the key point, bipolar disorder is a medical condition that requires medical treatment, usually medication plus therapy. Now, in regards to bipolar, it could be that there's an imbalance, I guess, I don't know, chemically in your brain, right? Doesn't mean there's something wrong with you, it just means that you're imbalanced, I don't know. Now, it says the core difference in one table. So, type. Self-sabotage, so category, self-sabotage and bipolar disorder, comparing these two, their types. Self-sabotage is a behavioral pattern. Bipolar disorder is a medical brain disorder. Choice. Unconscious behavior. So in self-sabotage, you don't know why you do it. It's like you're about to have the most beautiful moment, and right when you're about to have that beautiful moment, some little thing causes you to kind of shift the context. I can explain, like, that's my whole intent for this episode, to try to explain to the viewers. Anyways, it says choice. So self-sabotage is unconscious behavior. Bipolar disorder, involuntary mood swings. It's out of your control. To some degree, I mean, of course, self-sabotage is out of your control. Cause. So the cause of self-sabotage is trauma, fear, conditioning. Okay? It's like somebody telling you, I didn't have this happen to me, but I don't know, you can do it, I guess, to yourself, Like, if it matters whether you say it to yourself or others say it, you have to be very careful, because it's kind of like, imagine you were raised in an environment where everybody called you a failure, and right when you're about to succeed, you're like, but I've already, my brain's familiar with this sort of identity. So you got to be careful of what you're unconsciously identifying, because sometimes you don't let yourself deserve what you deserve. Now, it says the mood swings. So self-sabotage is situational, yes, because you're sabotaging something, an opportunity. But bipolar disorder, it's extreme and cyclical, Treatment. The treatment for self-sabotage is therapy, awareness, coaching. The treatment for bipolar disorder is medication plus therapy. Then we have category. Can you stop it? So self-sabotage, it can be stopped. Yes, you can work on it. But bipolar disorder, you need medicine. It says not without medical care. Now it says why people confuse them, because both can look like this on the outside. Sudden life destruction, risky decisions, relationship chaos, inconsistent behavior, guilt and regret afterward, for real. But internally, self-sabotage equals fear-based. Bipolar equals chemistry-based. What does that mean? That means, ladies and gentlemen, unconscious fear has been denying us our better life. This is the coolest thing, this was, this is why, to me, I'm Muslim, and it's very fascinating, because it's one of the schools of thought that says the nafs can be your enemy. You can be an enemy to yourself. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, maybe a part of you was a young child and you were shy, and a part of you hates you for that. And because you hate yourself for that, you're still, it's like a younger version of you having a grudge with yourself, even though you're older now and years have gone by. It's another way of saying that, it's like, I guess person's been damaged to not have a healthy evaluation of themselves. Man, people don't know. This guy who's talking about an advanced civilization. was afraid of existence. To realize that was haram. It is haram to fear the world. One must fear the power that moves the world, the creator, the system admin of reality. It says, 2025 perspective, self-sabotage is misaligned identity protecting itself from perceived danger. Bipolar disorder is neurological rhythm disorder of emotional intensity. One is healed by consciousness, the other is managed by medicine. 6. The one sentence difference. Self-sabotage is when your subconscious mind works against your goals. Bipolar disorder is when your brain chemistry overrides your emotional control. Now, I looked at AI and I'm like, give me a more advanced view. So that's what I was reading at first. I'm going to read it now. It says, most academic and clinical explanation. From an academic perspective, self-sabotage and bipolar disorder differ fundamentally in ontological status, etiology. Never heard that word before. Let me see what it means. The cause, so it's in medicine. The cause, set of causes or manner of causation of a disease or condition. Okay. And treatment modality. It says, self-sabotage is classified as a maladaptive behavioral and cognitive pattern, not a psychiatric disorder. It manifests when an individual engages in actions that directly undermine their long-term goals, despite conscious intentions to succeed. Theoretical frameworks attribute self-sabotage primarily to defensive psychological mechanisms, including fear of success, fear of failure, insecure attachment, internalized negative self-concept, and unresolved trauma. It is maintained by reinforcement learning, cognitive distortions, and identity-based conditioning, and is therefore modifiable primarily through psychotherapeutic interventions such as cognitive behavioral therapy, psychodynamic therapy, and trauma-informed approaches. Guys, so I personally have this view that if I was trapped on an island and there was nobody there, how would I have to deal my mental health? So a part of me has this approach of kind of like, you don't understand. I have a sort of OCD when it comes to things that I see that I don't see clearly. A part of me wants to see them clearly, you know? So it says it is maintained by reinforcement learning, cognitive distortions, and identity-based conditioning, and is therefore modifiable primarily through psychotherapeutic interventions such as cognitive behavioral therapy, psychodynamic therapy, and trauma-informed approaches. In contrast, bipolar disorder is a neuropsychiatric mood disorder characterized by pathological oscillations between manic or hypomanic states and depressive states. Its etiology is strongly associated with genetic vulnerability, dysregulation of monoamine neurotransmitters, circadian rhythm instability. That means if your sleep pattern's off, like more of a chance of you being bipolar, and abnormalities in frontal limbic brain circuitry. Unlike self-sabotage, bipolar disorder is episodic, biologically driven, and not volitional. It requires long-term pharmacological treatment, often involving mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, and antidepressants under strict medical supervision. So guys, back in the day, you know, it was this, or I think, like, I don't know, I'm so old school sometimes where I feel like, you know, sometimes slapping someone into reality awakens, you know, that what they're missing in them. In summary, self-sabotage is a learned psychological behavior that operates within motivational and identity frameworks, whereas bipolar disorder is an endogenous mood disorder. So in endogenous, and yeah, endogenous. Yeah, okay. It means internal cause. So endogenous means it's internally caused. Exogenous, ex, yeah, exogenous is the opposite. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, so endogenous means cause from inside, exogenous means cause from outside. So, whereas bipolar disorder is an endogenous mood disorder rooted in neurobiological dysregulation, confusing the two constitutes a category error between behavioral adaptation and medical pathology. The most advanced and integrative 2025 level explanation. Okay. At the most advanced level of understanding, self-sabotage and bipolar disorder represent two distinct failure modes of human self-regulation across different layers of the human system. So guys, I think it's safe to say just the absence of mental health, it's like we failed to self-regulate ourselves. Do you know? It's a mode. I mean, it says it here better than I can say. Self-sabotage and bipolar disorder represent two distinct failure modes of human self-regulation across different layers of the human system. So for example, if something good's about to happen, let's say you're in a relationship with someone and everything's going great and everything's normal, right? Suddenly a part of you fails. Exactly. The cause of self-sabotage is internal failure. There you go. When you fail, you don't believe it's worth it. I totally understand. When you want something to happen and you tie meaning, you connect meaning to that. And when that meaningful thing doesn't happen, or to you doesn't happen, that means like somebody can go by a store and imagine they pull the door of the store and the door doesn't open. So they're like, man, it's closed. Self-sabotage, they leave. But imagine someone goes there and they're like, wait a minute, it's my belief. I am assuming the store is closed. What if I push the door? And you push the door and you see the store was open. For example. It says self-sabotage is a distortion at the level of identity, meaning, and subconscious threat detection. The nervous system has learned, often through early emotional conditioning, that success, intimacy, visibility, or power equates to danger. As a result, the mind unconsciously generates behaviors that preserve psychological safety at the cost of growth. From this view, self-sabotage is a miscalibrated survival algorithm encoded into the personality architecture. Man, imagine if somebody's like, yo, what's self-sabotage? And I just look at them in the face and I'm like, look at them straight in the eyes, and I'm like, a miscalibrated survival algorithm encoded into the personality architecture. Yeah, that means it's the wrong way. Your brain has accepted the wrong meaning to the wrong moment, to the right moment. You know what I mean? Or something like that. It says it is not illness. It is an outdated protection strategy. Bravo. Bravo. Ladies and gentlemen, anybody experiencing self-sabotage, okay, something good is about to happen, you suddenly leave. Do you know what I mean? Or like, people give you a gift, you can't accept it. Or people are nice to you, you can't accept it. Like, women are going to understand how deeply in male psychology, do you understand that means in some sense, if a man doesn't feel worthy, he's not going to attempt at all. Do you know? Anyways, this thing that it says self-sabotage, it is not illness. It is an outdated protection strategy. It is an outdated protection strategy that once ensured emotional survival, but now undermines evolutionary development. Yeah, it could have been like you were shy in class, and when the teacher asked you, you have questions, you said no, even if you did. And then, like, the moment went through, and that became a sort of thing where anytime the teacher asked you questions, or maybe you asked a question once, and it wasn't a good question, and everybody laughed or something, you know what I mean? And then after that, you stop asking questions, even when it's important. For example, it is corrected through consciousness expansion, identity restructuring, emotional integration, and nervous system recalibration. Bipolar disorder, by contrast, is a dysregulation of neural energy modulation itself. The brain's systems for emotional intensity, reward sensitivity, sleep, impulse control, and self-perception enter into biological resonance extremes. Mania represents a state of pathological Mania represents a state of pathological amplification of salience. What a beautiful word, salience, the quality of being particularly noticeable or important. So mania represents a state of pathological amplification of salience, drive, and confidence. Depression represents pathological attenuation of meaning, motivation, and vitality. This oscillation is not symbolic. It is electrophysiological, neurochemical, and circadian. No amount of insight alone can stabilize it without medical regulation. Thus, at the highest resolution, self-sabotage is a software level identity conflict. Bipolar disorder is a hardware level mood regulation instability. One is an error in self-model coherence, the other an error in neurobiological signal governance. So it says self-sabotage, this is the final thing, it says self-sabotage is a learned defensive conflict within the identity and motivational system. Bipolar disorder is a genetically influenced instability in neural mood regulation circuits. Yeah, so pretty much okay, so it's kind of giving a better answer here. I'm going to read it. From a clinical and academic standpoint, I'll read it again. Self-sabotage is a maladaptive behavioral. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Back to it. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Back to it. I'm almost done with the research component, and then I'll dive into it. Give you a real example so you understand. Where was I? Self-sabotage is a maladaptive behavioral and cognitive pattern in which an individual repeatedly engages in actions that undermine their own long-term goals, success, relationships, or well-being, despite consciously desiring positive outcomes. It is not classified as a psychiatric disorder, but rather as a learned behavioral adaptation rooted in disordered cognitive schemas, emotional avoidance, and identity-based conditioning. Self-sabotage is caused by a convergence of core negative self-beliefs. For example, I'm not worthy, I will fail, I don't deserve stability. Ooh. Okay, I think I've been storing those up. A fear-based conditioning formed through early life experiences. Yep. Insecure attachment patterns, unresolved trauma, and anxiety-driven threat perception. Neurologically, it is reinforced through avoidance learning within the amygdala prefrontal circuitry, where behaviors that temporarily reduce emotional distress are repeatedly strengthened through negative reinforcement, even when they damage long-term outcomes. Prevention and correction occur through structured psychotherapeutic intervention, particularly cognitive behavioral therapy, schema therapy, psychodynamic therapy, and trauma focused approaches, all of which aim to reconstruct self concept, regulate emotional reactivity, update their perception, and recondition behavioral responses, allowing the individual to tolerate success, stability, and intimacy without activating defensive self destruction. So, yeah. So, guys, self sabotage is you're using it's legit self destruction is being treated as a dense, like you defeating yourself is like a defense mechanism, and it could be it's 100% trauma based. But you can give yourself trauma by not caring for yourself. You know, in the same way a person doesn't care for their body, like if they don't care for their body, their body's going to have problems. In the same way, if you don't care for your psychology and you're young and you have like some sort of trauma or something, do you know what I mean? And you're going to like grow up and be like a guy in his 30s wondering like, oh my God, why am I self-sabotaging good things that are happening to me? And why do I feel I am not worthy of a different life? Because that's the main thing, the worthiness of it, right? And the sad thing is, the self-sabotage probably has a snowball effect. So the more you're doing it, the bigger, I don't know. Anyways. It says at the most advanced level of understanding, self-sabotage is a survival-based identity defense generated by a nervous system that learned, often in early development, that expansion, visibility, success, love, or power were linked to emotional danger. Wow. It is not a desire to fail, but a biological and psychological attempt to preserve emotional predictability over growth. The brain prioritizes survival over fulfillment, and when success exceeds the nervous system's internal sense of safety, it activates protective collapse through procrastination, destruction, conflict, addiction, withdrawal, or impulsive loss. Thus, self-sabotage is caused by misaligned survival memory encoded into identity, threat detection systems, and emotional regulation circuits, where the subconscious equates becoming more with being unsafe. Wow. 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 Oh my God. That is so lame. Okay. Yeah, it's like it's emotionally illogical. The action might be logical, but you emotionally have interpreted it as illogical. It says so I'm going to read it again. It says what appears as weakness is in fact an outdated survival algorithm still operating inside a modern life context. Or sorry, I'm going to read it from a bit higher up. It says, okay, whatever, I'll just read from here. The brain prioritizes survival over fulfillment, and when success exceeds the nervous system's internal sense of safety, It activates protective collapse through procrastination, destruction, conflict, addiction, withdrawal, or impulsive loss. Thus, self-sabotage is caused by misaligned survival memory encoded into identity, threat detection systems, and emotional regulation circuits, where the subconscious equates becoming more with being unsafe. What appears as weakness is in fact an outdated survival algorithm still operating inside a modern life context. Prevention at this level does not come from motivation or discipline alone, but from identity restructuring, emotional memory integration, and nervous system recalibration, where the individual retrains the body to experience success, intimacy, responsibility, and visibility as safe rather than dangerous. Holy shit. At the highest resolution, self-sabotage ends only when you're allowed to become when who you're allowed to become no longer violates who your nervous system once had to be in order to survive. Wow. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the cure to self-sabotage. It says, self-sabotage ends only when who you are allowed to become no longer violates who your nervous system once had to be in order to survive. Self-sabotage, it says, is the unconscious use of self-defeating behavior to protect emotional safety when success, love, or growth feel biologically unsafe. Oof. So, this is one of those moments, folks, where you get to see a person who realizes what's wrong with them. So I guess now it's all about identity. This is very complex levels of psychological development to a being. What does it really mean? So folks, let me tell you what it is. Or let me say it this way, we look at humans and we think that they are what we see. But it has been clear for me for some time that we are all living lives behind our eyes that nobody else can see. We are present to states, in states and modes that others cannot know. Yet we are here. That means even though there's 8 billion humans on one planet, there is 8 billion versions of the world behind our eyes. There's 8 billion inner realms to the human species. Now, how do you live behind your eyes? What motivates your identity? For example, this lecture is even making me realize that maybe a part of me felt like podcasting is safe. Do You know, there's an emotional logic to it, you know, and thinks that like speaking in public is wrong. This is self-sabotage. The incredible thing about self-sabotage is not only when it's conscious, you can think about all the different ways you're sabotaging yourself. I can even see it. You know, and you have to be brave enough to wonder about this. For example, my smoking habit, self-sabotage. Sometimes my inability to connect with others, self-sabotage. And this makes it even more difficult. Because it's like realizing hilariously there is an enemy within. It is all about the life you deserve. Do you understand? This is where God, the system admin, comes into picture. So if I am somebody, I had low self-esteem, low self-worth, I had fear, I didn't have natural self-expression in the sense of like expressing myself the way I wanted to, or what felt naturally. I had to preserve, I had to act to survive, you know, or that's what my body and nervous system felt, you know. But now when I look at reality, and so, you know, this is the nature of reality. It is not a perfect place. There isn't perfect people. The perfection even we do acknowledge is behind our eyes more than in front of it. The meaning of reality is a way of how you subjectively keep it. Do you understand? That means in the same way, why is it that self-sabotage, it doesn't need medicine? Because it is your own beliefs, but it could be unconscious beliefs. It could be like the person is, imagine like they were very young, when they were young, right? Or it's like, imagine the person was like very fat, you know, or they were very skinny, and then they've gone to the gym. You know, they've gone to the gym and they're like super muscular person after many years. Do you understand? But they don't have the confidence of that position. Their body is unconsciously identifying with a different position, and to discover the unconscious life of the human being. Now, I am against the therapy of this, you know, because I know many various methods of like different ways that they've kind of like, see guys, you're listening to someone who in his youth, since the age of 11, it was my hobby because I was fascinated by the mind to kind of comprehend this. Do you understand? That means the things that were not. And so, you know, it's like, how do I explain it to you? It's not possible to like yourself too. Like, I don't understand. Like when I go back to it in my mind, and I'm like, man, why was I shy in my youth? It's because I felt that being myself, I think this is what it was, that was taking something. You don't understand. It's like so many people do not give permission to themselves. There has to come some force to give them permission from outside of them. That's how they've been conditioned. As if you cannot give yourself permission to be a valuable person. Do you know, do you understand? If you've been valuing yourself as like valueless, do you know? I'm telling you guys, like, you don't know. Maybe there will come a day where you will speak, you know, I guess publicly, And you'll kind of realize it's the challenge of not just the audience in front of you, but you in front of yourself. It's a part of psychology that every being has to deal with. It's not enough to just look in the mirror. Do you understand? You can look in the mirror, there was a time. Do you understand? There was a time there's unconscious things, even subconscious emotions. Somebody could be smiling, super happy, but subconsciously they are super upset. Do you know what I mean? There's been times where I've come and like given these lectures, and of course the lecture is not personal, because the thing is, these talks for me are, what's up guys, welcome. So this, anyways, oh my god, this car is not letting me. There's something more important than me, and that's what I'm using to stabilize my reality. To be honest, because it's kind of like, I'm sorry, but as a body, I can care for existence for what, like 100 years. But as a mind, it's different. And guys, don't think that just because somebody talks nicely, they're a nice person. The mind is very layered. Do you understand? And in different layers. Like, to be honest, like if I was to explain the mind to you, it's like how intelligence is fighting like countless battles at the same time. The person's like, wait a minute, are people this whole time thinking that it's only our conscious identity here? How do you know what unconscious identity a person has? Do you know what I mean? This is the fascinating thing. I remember, well, this is way before even 2011. I used to like watch poker online, like ridiculous amount of poker online I would watch. And this was even before I finished. I think it was right after high school. It was before the talks were born. The talks were born August 19, 2014. Let me explain to you what I experienced recently. Now, I want to share with the viewers, I'm kind of like hilariously designed. So I'm not only bilingual, you know, I was raised in two different cultures. Therefore, when I look at a form or phenomena, it has two different realities it could animate. Of course, my vocabulary is different, you know. Somebody in the chat section says, I noticed that most people have hormone imbalance and social psychological conditioning. Well, think of it this way. The thing that this lecture, you know, even though I'm more zoomed in on self-sabotage because I can relate to it, you know, it's the condition. We're conditional beings. What we think is us is a condition. What I think is me right now is a state, is a condition of a state of consciousness. And you know what's fascinating to me? Do you know, imagine somebody in the conscious waking state. Oh, perfect psychology. you know, in all waking states. And then they're like, they go to this therapist, and the therapist is like, why are you here, man? You're balanced and everything. You know, it's like, why are you here? And the person's like, no, I behave radically in my dreams. And so the person's like, what? This guy's here wanting to change his dream self? You know what I mean? He wants therapy for his dream self. The therapist's like, all right, man, let me just go into lucid dreaming for a second. Nah, I'm kidding. I'm joking, guys. You know, the unseen is nothing to play with. In actuality, the meaning. I'm trying to explain to you that logically a person might like something, but illogically they don't. And when the thing I was telling you about me seeing poker is that there's this thing that sharks and poker know. Okay, and what it is that when somebody hasn't earned their money, they just come to the poker table and they start losing it all. Do you understand? And the sharks figure this out. They're like, okay, this guy got his money, you know, in a vague way. He doesn't feel he deserves the money, because there is this belief that deep down, because you're a creature of empathy and because the brain can mirror different realities, you're a good person. Okay, that means a part of you understands that at least being a good human being, in so-called good human being in civilization, is a greater success strategy than being a bad human. Do you understand? Oh my God. It's all about your inner realms and outer realms, folks. You know, that's the instability of it. Pretty much self-sabotage is like you have an emotion. It's even deeper than thoughts. Okay? It's like, I'll give you an example. The self-sabotage I experienced in let's say something that was developing into a current relationship, you know, was the self-sabotage was that I was not impatient. Excuse me, I was not patient. Something had to have meaning right away. If it didn't, I destroyed it. You know, I was like something like that. If I can, it's like, do you know what it is? It's not about just like, how do I say it? It's not about just getting what you want, but it's also how you feel about what you want. Do you know, like, I'm telling you, your mind can give you emotions based on scenarios that are not necessarily relevant to the physical reality. Do you know, little things could suddenly have big significance and you don't know why? Do you know? So personally, you know, I was, how do I say it? It was, I interpreted something that I could, so pretty much in this moment of self-sabotage I experienced, I got upset about something. Rather than going and talking about communicating how I was upset, I've been conditioned to leave. Do you know, they even said it, that empaths are kind of like this. You know, that means when a narcissist meets an empath, what is the empath's killer blow to the narcissist? Does anybody know? I feel like a teacher here. Do the students know? Yeah. It is absence. One of the most terrifying things agreeable people can do is absolute disagreement. You know? So, is it easier to leave, or is it easier to fix the moment? I self-sabotaged myself because it was easier to leave the moment than to fix the moment. And as someone who's experienced this many times, this isn't the first time I've self-sabotaged myself, you know? This is why I keep telling the viewers, when you look at the idea of a human has flaws, but the idea of an advanced civilization, the idea of an advanced humanity, the idea of an advanced creator, we are in an advanced world. We are advanced beings. And it is a testament to our advancement. That means, right now I'm kind of feeling, I self-sabotaged myself. I didn't let myself have something I wanted. Okay? But at least it's a complex display of something. I had a fear, not a fear, there was a part of me when I was young that one felt it was like too empty. It felt hollow. That's kind of, it's like when you look, how they say some people exist, but some people live? That living requires achievable meaning. That means when I look at humans on Earth, they're putting their efforts to try to achieve things. Do you know? And then there's a resistance. The person wants something, so that automatically, because they want one side of a dualistic reality, the other side comes. Now, what is the solution to self-sabotage? I think it's being able to realize it. Okay? So it's like, imagine there's like, how do I say it? Like, here, let me ask ChatGPT, give me a list of the most common and most popular clinically academic reasons for self-sabotage in the human species. I kind of want to share with you, let's try to see if we can kind of get a sense. And guys, the thing about self-sabotage is that it's the innocent you at the end of it wondering what happened. That's the hardest part. You don't know why that moment happened that way. But it did. That's the heaviness of it. See, I asked AI, and it's obviously, it says we don't know what percentage of the human population self-sabotages, but I know. It's like pretty much everybody has certain things, because the self-sabotage is situational. That means if you find yourself in certain situations where you don't like yourself to win in those situations and you don't realize it and it's subconscious, it says most academic research self-sabotage study specific behaviors, procrastination, self-defeating behaviors, self-harm, avoidance, self-neglect, rather than a global, in quotation, self-sabotage syndrome. Even for those behaviors, prevalence estimates vary wildly depending on definition. For example, studies on self-injurious or self-harming behaviors show prevalence in general population samples ranging from a few percent to over 40%. Depending on definitions used and population sampled, it says many sources claiming that 70% or 85% of people self-sabotage or have low self-esteem are not peer-reviewed academic are not peer-reviewed academic research, but popular articles, blogs, or self-help content. Yeah, it says about 70% of adults engage in some form of self-sabotage. But see, this is the question: what self is sabotaging what self? This is how we should see self-sabotage. If I was to explain it to you, it would be like, okay, there's a different version of you that is intervening in this moment's version of you. And it could not be a conscious idea, it could just be an emotion. Do you understand? This is the bizarreness of how really deep human psychology is. It could just be how you felt. It may not even be a memory. Or it could be how you felt in a it could be how you felt in a memory rather than a specific thing. Somebody in the chat sections, oh my god. Somebody in the chat section says, perhaps self-sabotage came with abandonment issues from early childhood. Yeah, I read it. Not just that, various things. It's low self-worth. It's pretty much a part of you. I'll give you an example of self-sabotage. Okay? You were raised in a theocracy. Okay? Do you know? And a part of you is like, you know, submissive and shy. You know, but then you find yourself in a situation where you need to actually be the opposite, but a part of you is like, no man, you used to be that guy. You know, so I used to be this guy who sometimes when things overwhelmed me, I would disconnect just abruptly. It was savage, you know. And there's moments where I don't know how to say it. It's like when you realize you can't deal with something, you make it a big deal, but you don't know if you can deal with it or if the feeling. That means, imagine, so I'll give you an example. So let's say I'm coming to give a lecture, I haven't pressed the record button, and I'm like, man, I want to talk about this topic. Now, a part of me could be like, who are you? Do you know? Who are you to even talk? Like, you, because people think I don't have imposter syndrome, but let me tell you how I bypass my imposter syndrome: by facts. Do you know? That means if somebody comes and says, hey man, you know, who made you an expert on reality? And I'll be like, I am not claiming to be an expert, but I am more of an expert on my mind than you are on my mind. And in some sense, we're 8 billion human beings in a world where we're storytelling everything. No, everybody's acting like we know what's going on. We don't really know. And it's behaving more like a field of intelligence rather than specific entities are moving around. Do you know? Dear viewers, self-sabotage can also be because you think you are more important. Do you know? I'm starting to realize how many moments could have gone well if I just didn't. You know what's strange? It's like a version of you in the past is, as a defense mechanism, telling you like to not do something even though it's perfectly healthy and right and everything's good to do. Do you know what I mean? And then, I don't know, it's like we got to be careful not to let our past self sabotage our future self. And the only way I find is to understand that in the presence, what you give it, it's what you give attention to, but also the patience. We're not like such advanced AI that by mere instant of seeing something can figure everything out about it. You know, that means it's processing time. You know, many situations I self-sabotage if I just didn't care for that line of thought. Do you know? You don't understand, you know? There was this guy, I don't know who it was, somebody had said long time ago, like, you know, I mean, it was like conspiracy and stuff, but they were like humans are like in a prison and they're their own prison guard. That's the thing about self-sabotage. Your past self has kept your future self, denied your future self. You don't understand that rage in moments of self-sabotage. It's like realizing you're telling me because I was a certain way in the past and there came a new moment where I could be something else, the brain was like, I don't know what this is, let's go back to the old you. I mean, like, F that. Like, excuse my language, but we have to go towards, how do I explain it? I'm pretty much realizing if I was patient, if I wasn't convinced by my own angle and meaning and view to the moment could have happened better, or it could have happened differently. Anyways, folks, I'm going to end the talk here. It's having its toll on me. And you might wonder, like, oh my God, is Mr. Within self-sabotaging his lecture on self-sabotage? And no, guys, I've done it justice. It's just that there isn't much I can tell you. It's just a matter that it's not just, it could be emotions from the past can influence you, thoughts from the past, sentences from the past. You can even have emotions on sentences that did not arise from you. Somebody in the chat section says adults and older siblings continuously abusing the younger one, mentally and physically breaking them. No. Oh my God, that is what should have been. That's healthy. Do you understand? Do you know? I mean, abuse is not healthy. The word abuse is wrong. But I would say if, like, how do I say it? Like, if you have a older brother, like, tease the younger brother or something, like siblings, I don't see that as being unhealthy. Usually children who have older brothers, they don't self-sabotage. Do you understand? This is my understanding. If you're a lonely child, or maybe even if you're a twin, self-sabotage is more, because the archetypes you're left with is you. You understand? It's like, I'll give you an example. In my youth, I was super shy. Other people were like talking and expressing themselves. I couldn't. Okay? Now, if somebody older than me, if I went back in the future, like the older me, and kind of shook myself and explained it and snapped myself out of, like, buddy, nobody cares. Everybody's in this world for the first time. They think they're special because they need to. You don't understand how many people have to feel special, but for this, and that's the reason they have opinions on they counter things. You don't understand. It's like that thing they say where, why do real estate agents hate when they're showing like, let's say a property to a client, right? And the client brings their friend. They're like, damn it. Why does the realtor say damn it? Because in order for the friend to have value, they must say something. They might say, like, I don't like the stairs, even if the person likes the stairs, But anyways, what I'm telling you is, more and more we're discovering ourselves as the presence of a field of intelligence, and the species is unifying. Therefore, if you can notice self-sabotage in yourself and you notice others self-sabotaging, go and help them, because it's their past self. You don't understand, like, that's the compassion. It's very hard. It's like a part of you lets go of the meaning, because there's another way to see the meaning based on your past self. It's culture, it's conditioning. Oh my God, it's programming. It's not programming others did. It's ways we programmed ourselves without realizing we were programming ourselves. Guys, it's not a self-sabotage is not a medical thing. You know, if you're bipolar, then you need medicine. Legit, there's some imbalance in your brain. But self-sabotage is situational, and it's a miscalculation. That means somewhere in my ego code, like, there's an unnecessary code there, written code there. But who knows? Who really knows? Maybe the system admin wanted, a person to self-sabotage so he could come and talk about it. Maybe bad things happen, so the system updates. So more good things can happen. Maybe if I have self-sabotage, I don't, let me tell you why. I can't see, let me tell you something. It's self-sabotage only when it's for myself. If somebody tells me, like, when it comes to the advanced civilization, I'm willing to, how do I say it, even sacrifice myself for that. Why? Because it is a value greater than the individual value. Do you understand? So I could tell, so at least one way, I guess I've been somehow dealing with my self-sabotage, and I'm like, okay, man, you might not have liked who you were when you were young, or you might not even like yourself, but why does that matter? Why does it matter? Why does it matter? When there is a civilizational intelligence here, occupied with problems of an individual when your species is suffering in front of you. Self-sabotage, I'm going to say something that is, I don't know, but I'm just going to say it. If you are someone who's done self-sabotage, is because you did not see something greater than yourself in that moment. Some self had to win, whether your future self or your past self. But sometimes when we live for others, there's a greatness there. I don't know how to explain it to you. It's very different than me coming and talking about, all right, guys, how do I advance my life only, compared to being like, yo, man, why does it matter, my life? There's how many human beings are entering the system every day, how many human beings are leaving, and I am one of those. Do you know what I mean? It's like you start off as a statistic, and then you, before you leave this realm, you're shouting at it as if like, I see you. Do you see yourself though? And plus, I think it's about force. That means, how do I say it? I have this OCD, like, I don't know. I mean, I say OCD, but I think sometimes I'm just strict. Somebody who's just thinking about themselves, there are two options you have. I mean, think about it, guys. Guys, think about it. If you're just thinking about yourself, you can either create yourself or destroy yourself or just remain. 3 options. It's this bizarre thing. I'm just thinking that if I'm not creating myself, am I destroying myself? Or do we need to destroy ourselves to create ourselves? And I don't know, man. This is getting too complex, But somebody in the chat section says it's about love. I don't know what else to say. Okay, you can define love. What kind of love? That means, what if a person doesn't have the reasons to love themselves? Maybe the person, everybody loves them. Do you know what I mean? And they even act like they love themselves, but there's a feeling. It's like there's there's an emotion off. Do you see the depth of it? And of course, love is important. I think that love is the activation of the soul. That means, it's hard to say it, but it's true. Years ago, when I felt like I was in the Raja Yoga phase, Raja Yogi phase, which meant that I was purely functioning on intellectual values. My nourishment was not emotional. It was ideological and calculative. It was as if like a person can wake up one day, just calculate, see things, understand, see, process, calculate, and then the day finishes. Now, did they even think about themselves to even love themselves? I'm not going around thinking of myself all the time to even have to love myself. Do you understand? But the thing is, see, I think even with self-sabotage, there's parts of it you can't do anything. Like, there's a story, like when I was like 4 years old, like me and my brother, I have a twin brother, and then there were these other kids or something. One of these kids hits my brother, and I'm not even conscious. I don't have any memories of this. But they're like, you went and hit that. So I go and hit that kid who hit my twin brother, right, at 4 years old. My aunt comes and like a psycho grabs my wrist and starts shouting like a psychopath or something. Now, I didn't know this. They told me this story, right? But then I was like, oh, is that why? Yeah. It's and who knows? Like it's things that like they say the human identity, what, like 11, 12, up to 14, like somewhere around that age, like you're individualizing. So I'm saying it's more difficult, but I'm telling you, if it's too difficult to figure out, that means if I've lived 33 years. Imagine like I was midpoint of my life. I had 33 years to go. I'm not going to spend the next 33 years to try to figure out, okay, man, I was damaged. How do I fix that damage? It's impossible unless I have a time machine and could go back, and it could be a causal loop or a predestination paradox. I don't see any other way. Do you understand? So it's as if, what do you do as a wounded soldier in a battlefield of existence? You wonder why you're in the battlefield. That purpose aligns your psychology, because you might not know how to. I might not know, like you might not understand, but I might be talking about the advanced civilization because there's a part of me that's dying behind my eyes, that doesn't understand what the F did it mean. Small moments of happiness when the system is inefficient. And you don't know. Sometimes you don't know if you should be getting angry or you should be calm. But the more I've understood is that any time I've had the force in me to attack and break, I break parts of myself off. You cannot hurt another without breaking yourself. Some part of you gets chipped off. Something goes when you do the thing that even before your ego and ideology, you feel it's wrong. Do you know what I mean? Anyways, and of course, love is healthy. Love means you're accepted for who you are. But a person who didn't accept himself in his youth, how can I love that? How can I love myself now? I can love this version of me. That version in the past lived unloved. Now the question is, if a being is defined by the collection of their memories, in the same way in Game of Thrones, Brandon Stark was no longer Brandon Stark because he had become the three-eyed raven, because he had memories of everybody. You understand? That means his identity was not limited to his outer realm, because his access in the inner realm was beyond the one body in the outer realm. Pretty much, you were seeing pretty much what Brandon Stark was in Game of Thrones. Probably in 1,000 years, everyone will be. Less than that, probably. Give it 400. But anyways, Where am I going with this? Of course, let's say a person, like a person might not love themselves, but it doesn't mean they don't love others. You see that Godfather guy, like, in the movies, like, man, that guy's like a villain, but he loves his cat. Look at how he's taking care of his cat. You know what I mean? Like the super villain sitting on, like, at his table or something. Well said. Well said. Somebody in the chat section said, give it all back to God. He will set you free. Yep. I 100% believe that. But my whole point of it is that, even if you're giving it to God, it's still not self. Like, you're not fixing the problem. That's my point. It's very difficult. I don't know how I could go back in the past and be somebody else. To be like, all right, I'm this I'm this person who won't self-sabotage. But, there is a part of me that it doesn't matter, like, how life is happening. It's just kind of fascinated how it is at all, though. Like, I think that's part of me. That's the silly side of me. I'm like, okay, something's happening. And they say be grateful. At least, if I was to explain to you, oh my God, if I was to explain to you what, for example, the religious advice to self-sabotage is, they wouldn't even consider that. They would say it's shaitan. Shaitan is causing you, an anti-human force moderator. But it could also be where they say in Islam, if you see a Muslims, that means this is something they're trying for. What is it? When something good happens, you say Alhamdulillah, which means all praise due to the Lord. Do you know? When something bad happens, you also say Alhamdulillah. Because it oscillates, meaning that even in the Holy Quran it says, after hardship comes ease. But I don't know, there's a part of me that always feels if I could have done better and I knew I could do better, why didn't I do better? And and why do I have to do better? Oh yeah, because I'm existing once. That means even if none of you, if 8 billion people don't care, if none of you cared to see like how advanced, I become, and there's a part of me that has to see it before I die. How advanced does the system go? How advanced will human beings be? Because my task is just to tell, at first. What does that mean? That means I just have to make the civilization conscious of the advanced option. I honestly feel like I finished my purpose the moment I could connect the dots and tell you that the advanced civilization is the greatest argument. And the greatest human experience would be the most advanced civilization would be a divine civilization where its destiny is not left to itself. From a religious perspective, self-sabotage is in the domains of the unseen. All you can do is pray. Do you know? But also, maybe it was meant to. That's the thing. Religion, actually, when you look at it religiously, it's easier. Less pressure. Because you're like, I don't know, man. Maybe if I hadn't self-sabotaged myself, I could have, forgot who I was. Or I could have gone a path that would be different. Or maybe my value system changes. Because I don't think the viewers understand that the reason these talks are still happening is because in my value system, they're a valuable act. For example, if in the future I have kids and a wife or something, I'm sorry, but, I gotta go advance the civilization in my home first, So what I mean is that it's because it has value. And I guess if somebody self-sabotages, the sabotage was more valuable subconsciously to them. That's the heartbreak. A part of them wanted something and a part of them didn't, and the part of them that didn't subconsciously overpowered the part of them that did. And who knows? The thing I was saying is that I have felt sorry for myself. I have looked down on myself. I have hated this. I have fought against this in my inner realms. But this is not here just for me. Or I would have been, in some sense, how would I say it? There is only one feeling in me that's keeping me here. And it was this feeling of like advance or die, and then it was this like, okay, but you don't know how to advance. That means you live a life. I think this is when you know your lifetime is complete. When you're no longer interested in the self anymore. You kind of realize the self is just a part of the moment. What is the whole moment's meaning and value? You don't know, in my inner realms, the savage ways I've attacked myself. Like, I'm someone who, when it comes to others, I legit, I am too, how do I say it? Not only the OCD, not only my shyness, not only just the fact that if I don't know how you're looking, I don't understand you. You know what I mean? It's just like, how do I explain? It's one of the hardest things to hate yourself and realize that hatred is coming from how you were, how you moved in this world. Like, it's coming from the overall system. And this is the hardest part, where rather than directing your hatred at the world, at the meaning you give to the world, you destroy yourself behind your eyes and let the moment pass without having any external influence. That means better than hitting others is hitting yourself. Better than hitting yourself is not to hit anything. But if you have to, hit yourself. Don't destroy yourself, but hit yourself. Do you know? There's been time when I say hit yourself, you don't have to physically hit yourself, but put the pressure down on yourself. Now, of course, in some people, there's counter arguments to this, that they're going to be like, it's not healthy. But I'm telling you, the devastation, that means, like, see, the way my moment is starting is that I am a being, I am an internal being before I'm an external one. Even though we have the belief that we're an external being before we're an internal one. That means the body is a part of my moment. But that which is looking behind my eyes is the real moment, is what I am. Somebody in the chat section says, can you let go of being the owner of anything, no matter what it is? See, you are not, first of all, great question. But the issue is that we don't own any of it. I'm telling you, you don't even own your existence. But because we have free will and we move, see, there's different worlds. Like self-sabotage, I guess, for the body, for the mind, for the soul, are different things. For example, self-sabotage on a body level, I'm smoking cigarettes. Self-sabotage on a mind, somebody wants to come and connect with me, you know. I open up a little and then I feel like, okay, who the hell, you know, you don't deserve, you know, things you wanted for a long time and you didn't get. But that's the thing. You can't let the mind get overpowered. I don't know. You know, maybe if I was you know, I'm sorry, but maybe if I was a girl, like this would my moment would have been different. But there's something in me that in some sense, it's the same feeling as rage against the dying of the light. Do you understand? That means it's like self-sabotage is equivalent to being self-bullied. And what do you do if you can't defeat? That means if you're positioned in a concept, this is madness what I'm telling you. I'm sorry, like, please be super conscious of what I'm telling you. Don't take it that seriously, but I'm telling you, If somebody, imagine a being, imagine some being came up to me and entrapped me in myself. Okay? It trapped me in myself. I couldn't be anything else. In that moment, if I had to retaliate against the being that is controlling myself, then I will become the context. I will become the moment. You understand? That means, yeah, if you don't like yourself, why do you have to remain as that self? Just because others know it? This doesn't mean, like, you might, I think it's hilarious. I think deep down the viewers know, like, there's a stability within me when I give these talks, but I think sometimes they're like, yo, man, what if in a parallel universe there's a super villain Mr. Within? Named Mr. Without. I'm joking. I don't know. It's a game. Who are we playing it for? At first we think it's for ourselves, then we realize we're part of a divinely commanded manifestation. Like, at some point, I don't know. And when somebody says, can you let go of being the owner of anything? See, that's the issue. If I completely let go, I'm not anything. Do you understand? That means there is some level of it required for individualism. Because if I don't own this body, then you're not even listening to me. Someone in the chat section says, and the light created the darkness by merely just existing, and the darkness comprehended it. Sorry, my phone's upside down. And the darkness comprehended it not. Okay, that's... The light of lights created the darkness. I wouldn't say light created the darkness. It's like saying the unknown created the known, or the known created the unknown. No, the known and unknown were separately created or simultaneously, I think. At least in Surah Al-Nur, in the Holy Quran, I remember it was such a next level moment. I opened it and it said, God is the light upon light. That means if you were a being made of light and you process everything through light, God would be the light of lights. Do you know what I mean? Or the most advanced being. The most advanced archetype of that. Honestly, so much of it is not in our control. This thing about self-sabotage is just another. Like, I don't control how people drive throughout the day. I don't control if, somebody makes a mistake while driving. In the same way, I control how I was raised in my youth to even have an emotion on the moment of now, to even deny myself something. Yeah, it could be beyond us, of course, but who knows? Anyways, I try to give a lecture on self-sabotage, and the insight was that, okay, you got to figure out, like, it might be a different self or an emotion of a different self sabotaging the potential self. But what I'm telling you is, when you make the purpose, how do I say it? It's like, if I had made the future more important, the past wouldn't, in that relationship I self-sabotaged, like, the past wouldn't have intervened. Sometimes you gotta care for what will be more than what you are. Because you don't know if what you are is imperfect, Like, at some point in this talk, I got a bit emotional because I'm like, yeah, I know I haven't had, or I haven't given myself the permission of, like, this love that every soul feels free in. But I don't know. I think a part of me could have only loved myself if there was not a single error. And only through the perspective of everything is controlled by God and it's okay can I then feel that safety to care. Because it's strange. If you were raised not liking yourself and others like you, it's very strange. It's legit a language. I think. Anyways, somebody says, stop laying claim to that which does not depend on you and you are free. Or actually, let me go up. Okay, so first they said, and the light created the darkness by merely just existing, and the darkness comprehended it not. When you donate everything back to God, to the Creator, to Source, you're giving it back to its rightful owner. Yes, so far I'm with you. Only then will you be cleansed of false responsibilities and the background feeling of ownership. Only then will you be cleansed of false responsibilities. Wow, wow. And the background feeling of ownership and the need to control your life. Stop laying claim to that which does not depend on you, and you're free. Let your world be free. Give it back to God. Let it breathe for God's sake. And this seems to have been a quote from Bentino. And the only Bentino I know is a soccer player. So I don't know. Soccer players are experiencing a different reality. I'm kidding. But thanks for sharing this. Yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, I'm not standing here acting as if I have all the answers. It's just I'm just taking what I'm seeing seriously to wonder about what it's missing. Yeah, this false responsibilities. I have a story I can relate to this. So I opened the Holy Quran and it said, what did it say? You know, this was at the peak of me talking about the advanced civilization. The Holy Quran said, even if people become perfect and become sinless, the system admin, God, would wipe civilization to bring a new generation of new era of sinners. Why? So that in their sin, in their flaw, in that mistake, they notice their incompleteness. Do you know? And it's kind of like God might create a being that self-sabotages, and life is gonna, like, maybe that might even keep happening until the person understands that they don't have the power, they are powerless. Or sorry, not they're powerless. It is not completed by their own power. My power has brought me up to this point. If I want to be something else other than this point, it needs a different power. Ah, Bentino Massaro. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that guy's a cool guy. I listened to 2 of his lectures, I think in 15, 16 or something. Yeah, I know. Guys, in no way I'm just that, how do I say it? Like, go towards the more advanced, you know, that is my vision for reality. That means this is going to be heartbreaking, but or maybe that's the whole point of, you know, somebody sharing this in the chat section, is that for me to realize you really don't have control. Yeah. I mean, sure. I mean, maybe years later I'm going to look at this self-sabotage and feel like maybe it was God's will. But, you know, God's will could also not be in self-sabotage, you know? Like, I feel I'm... Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. I don't know what else to say about this aside from, yeah, some of the things that we don't have control over, or we might not even understand how to control. What else can you do when the lower power is not enough? I guess the higher power is the focus. And it was so pointless, man. I'm telling you, self-sabotage is legit. Like, it's like, imagine they put a cup of tea in front of you, right? And the whole time you're waiting for tea. And then somebody's like, hey man, why don't you drink your tea? And you're like, wait a minute, this is mine? You self-sabotage yourself because of what you believed was true. And perhaps it's only truth that knows the way to live, that you don't self-sabotage. Anyways, guys, I feel the viewers know more than me here. They're going to be like, they're like, Mr.Within wants to build an advanced civilization, wants to make everybody advanced, to know his most advanced self. And imagine when everybody's advanced, they're like, all right, buddy, we don't need you. And I'll be like, that's fine. I saw it coming. It's like, don't worry, man. I was trained in self-sabotage. No, I mean, honestly, I don't know. I really don't know the value. Somebody, like, to me, a lot of things are like artwork. The value is based on what's looking at it. I could look at something and give it immense value and make it the whole point of my life. I could look at something and not give it any value and not make it a big deal. I could have ignored even this self-sabotage thing, but because it's happened numerous times, I've given lectures on it before. I gave a lecture on it when I was in Amsterdam, believe it or not. I don't know how well it was recorded, but anyways, thank you for listening. I hope this lecture was interesting. And next time, if you don't, I don't know, if you're someone who's, there's been self-sabotage in your life, I'm telling you, I think the way, because I experienced that exact moment where it could have been prevented, and it could have been prevented if I hadn't made myself more important, if I hadn't made my emotions more important than the moment and kind of kept it more natural rather than assuming that's what the language meant and that's what it was, and okay, it's time for me to go and all this, So it could be that sometimes self-sabotage is a sort of unconscious reaction, in the same way like somebody getting angry and they can't control the anger. They're reactively angry. They're not consciously angry. Consciously angry is you're angry, but you try to update the moment, not break the moment. You try to recreate the moment. Unconscious anger, you're just like, I don't know, like a bewildered beast or something. So guys, stop living like a bewildered, self-sabotaging beast, and be more patient with moments, and just understand that they can be seen differently. Pretty much every moment you live, you're gonna, in the future, have different angles or different ways that moment had meaning and value, right? So that's the thing. Be patient. Don't get too convinced by yourself. Wonder about what else the moment could mean, and wonder about, if I had just wondered about other versions of myself in that moment, I could have dodged that self-sabotage. But I wasn't patient, and I went back to this previous loop, and we're not perfect, but what can we do? At least we can learn from our, we can try to at least perfectly learn from our imperfections. All right, guys, this is the end of the talk. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, the most advanced. May God protect all of us and guide us away from self-sabotage towards true clarity of the divine intelligent field. For today, we're people that can complain about self-sabotage. Tomorrow, we're everything that could have been all at once. But even though we are everything that could have been all at once, doesn't mean we're God. God is beyond condition. We're just becoming more able in our conditions as beings, I guess. Thank you for listening. Good night.